For many, the options were limited to cheap, often poorly made cars that had more problems than perks. These were the cars that cut corners in design, performance, and quality, making them affordable but far from desirable. Ready to dive into 13 of the worst cars that only those on the tightest budgets could afford? Buckle up. You won't believe these disasters ever hit the road. The Triumph Mayflower, produced between 1949 and 1953, stands as one of the more peculiar and ill-fated cars of its time. Introduced by the British manufacturer Triumph as a small luxury car, it was intended to blend affordability with the elegance of larger, more expensive vehicles. However, this ambition quickly unraveled due to a combination of poor design choices, subpar performance, and misguided market positioning. Instead of achieving the desired balance between luxury and practicality, the Mayflower ended up as one of Triumph's most notable failures, largely remembered for its awkward appearance and lackluster driving experience. At the heart of the Triumph, Mayflower's problems was its design, which was widely regarded as unattractive, even when it first appeared. The car's boxy, upright profile, with its angular lines and razor-edge styling, made it look old-fashioned, even for the early post-war years. While the intention was to give the car a sense of formality and class, similar to the luxury cars of the time, the proportions were all wrong for a small vehicle. The tall, narrow body sat awkwardly on small wheels, making the car appear top-heavy and ungainly. The rear section of the car in particular, with its upright, squared-off trunk, lacked the sleekness or grace that buyers expected from a luxury model. This design choice was an attempt to mimic the stately appearance of larger, coach-built cars that were popular among wealthier drivers. But in the compact form of the Mayflower, it simply didn't work. The result was a car that looked more like a shrunken version of an outdated limousine rather than a stylish small sedan. Despite the brand's hopes of appealing to upwardly mobile buyers, the Mayflower's aesthetic appeal was minimal at best, and it failed to attract the attention Triumph had hoped for. Beyond its uninspired design, the Mayflower also suffered from poor performance, which was another major factor in its commercial failure. Powered by a small 1.25-liter four-cylinder engine, the car was woefully underpowered, especially given its relatively heavy body. Producing just 38 horsepower, the engine struggled to provide adequate acceleration, making the Mayflower feel sluggish and slow on the road. The top speed was a modest 62 miles per hour, but reaching that figure required significant patience. This lack of power made the Mayflower ill-suited for anything other than city driving, and even then, its performance was underwhelming. The driving experience was further hampered by the car's poor handling and suspension setup. The Mayflower was equipped with a rudimentary suspension system that provided a harsh, bumpy ride, particularly on uneven roads. Cornering was not its strong suit either, as the high center of gravity combined with the car's narrow width made it feel unstable, especially at higher speeds. While Triumph had intended to market the Mayflower as a car that combined the elegance of a luxury sedan with the ease of driving a small car, the reality was far from that vision. Inside, the Mayflower's attempts at providing a luxury experience also fell short. Although the interior was somewhat more refined than the utilitarian offerings of other small cars at the time, it was still lacking in many respects. The materials used were of a higher quality than those found in most budget cars, with leather upholstery and wood trim in some models. But the cramped cabin and overall lack of space made it uncomfortable for long journeys. The rear seating, in particular, was tight, and passengers often found themselves squeezed into the back with little legroom. Furthermore, the dashboard was simplistic and offered minimal instrumentation, contributing to a feeling of basicness that contradicted the car's intended luxury status. One of the Mayflower's selling points was its compact size, which was supposed to appeal to city dwellers and those looking for a more maneuverable car. However, this advantage was undermined by the car's other weaknesses, such as its limited power and uncomfortable ride. While it was small enough to navigate narrow streets, the lack of agility made driving it feel like a chore rather than a convenience. Compounding these issues were its reliability problems. Owners frequently reported mechanical issues, from engine troubles to electrical malfunctions, which made maintaining the car more expensive than Triumph had advertised. This further eroded the Mayflower's appeal as an affordable luxury car. Triumph had hoped that the Mayflower would find a niche among middle-class buyers who aspired to own a more prestigious car but couldn't afford larger, high-end vehicles. However, this strategy backfired. The car's odd styling and lackluster performance meant that it failed to capture the imagination of buyers, and the price, though lower than full-size luxury cars, was still too high for most working-class families. The Hudson Jet, produced between 1953 and 1954, represents one of the most notable failures in Hudson Motor Car Company's history. It was the company's ill-fated attempt to enter the growing compact car market in the early 1950s. At a time when American car manufacturers were beginning to explore the demand for smaller, more economical vehicles, Hudson saw an opportunity to compete with models like the Nash Rambler and the Willys Aero. Unfortunately, the Jet fell far short of expectations due to its lackluster performance, uninspired design, and poorly judged pricing strategy, leading to its swift disappearance from the market. One of the major problems with the Hudson Jet was its design, which did little to capture the imagination of buyers. Despite some initial ambitions to create a sleek and modern compact car, the final product ended up looking rather bland and awkward. The car's body was heavy and boxy, with styling cues that felt outdated even at the time of its release. While Hudson had hoped to create a car that would appeal to a broad range of customers, the Jet's conservative and uninspired appearance made it seem more utilitarian than attractive. Its rounded front end, short rear deck, and stubby overall proportions gave it a somewhat dumpy look, especially when compared to more stylish competitors. Inside, the Hudson Jet offered a functional but uninspiring interior. It was cramped, particularly in the back seat, and lacked the space and comfort that many buyers expected, even from a compact car. The materials used for the upholstery and dashboard were fairly basic, offering little in the way of luxury or refinement. While the car was intended to provide affordable transportation for families, the Jet's lack of comfort and features meant that it didn't stand out in a market where other compact cars were beginning to offer more value for the money. Another significant issue for the Hudson Jet was its poor performance. The car was powered by a small 202 cubic inch inline-six engine, which produced only around 104 horsepower. While this might have been adequate for a lighter vehicle, the Jet's relatively heavy body made it feel sluggish and underpowered. Its weight, combined with the modest output of the engine, meant that acceleration was slow and the car struggled to keep up with highway traffic. Handling was also a weak point, as the car's suspension system was not particularly advanced, leading to a bumpy, uncomfortable ride, especially on uneven roads. Compared to other compact cars of the era, the Hudson Jet felt clunky and unresponsive. Perhaps the most damning flaw of the Hudson Jet, however, was its pricing. Despite being marketed as a compact car, the Jet was priced significantly higher than many of its competitors. Hudson had invested heavily in the development of the Jet, and the company's decision to charge a premium for it was largely driven by a need to recoup those costs. Unfortunately, this strategy backfired. Buyers were unwilling to pay a higher price for a car that offered less in terms of style, performance, and features than other, cheaper options on the market. The Jet's higher price tag was particularly hard to justify when it was compared to more established compact models like the Rambler, which offered similar or better performance at a lower cost. Sales of the Hudson Jet were dismal from the start. The car simply did not resonate with the public, who found it too expensive and underwhelming compared to other cars in its class. Hudson had anticipated much stronger demand for the Jet, but production far exceeded actual sales. This miscalculation left the company with unsold inventory and financial losses that contributed to its eventual decline. The failure of the Jet was a significant blow to Hudson, which had already been struggling in the highly competitive automotive market of the 1950s. Just a few years after the Jet's introduction, Hudson was forced to merge with Nash Kelvinator to form the American Motors Corporation, AMC, marking the end of Hudson as an independent company. In hindsight, the Hudson Jet is often viewed as a case study in how poor design, weak performance, and bad pricing decisions can sink a car that might have otherwise found a niche. While Hudson had hoped that the Jet would allow it to compete in the growing compact car market, the car's numerous shortcomings made it a commercial disaster. Today, the Hudson Jet is remembered more for its role in Hudson's decline than for any lasting impact it had on the automotive world. It stands as a reminder that even well-established car companies can misjudge the market and produce a product that fails to meet consumer expectations. The Bond Bug, produced between 1970 and 1974, stands out as one of the quirkiest and most unusual cars of its era. Aimed at the youth market, it was designed to be a fun, affordable, and stylish option for younger drivers. Yet it ended up more of a novelty than a practical means of transportation. While its unique appearance and compact size initially captured attention, the car's lack of stability, weak performance, and impracticality led to its short lifespan and limited success. The most striking feature of the Bond Bug was its bold, wedge-shaped design. With a sharply angled front, bright orange body, and a canopy-style door that opened upwards, it certainly made a statement on the road. The car's futuristic look was intended to appeal to young drivers who wanted something different from the ordinary, boxy cars of the time. It was eye-catching and unconventional, making it seem like a vehicle out of a science fiction movie. However, the same daring design that attracted attention also raised eyebrows for its lack of practicality. The Bond Bug had no side doors. Drivers and passengers had to climb in through the single front canopy, which could be cumbersome in tight spaces or bad weather. Underneath the striking exterior, the Bond Bug shared many components with the Reliant Regal, including its three-wheel configuration. The three-wheel design was meant to keep costs down and allow the car to be classified as a motorcycle in the UK, which meant lower taxes and insurance rates for its owners. However, this design choice came with significant drawbacks. The Bug was notoriously unstable, especially in sharp turns or at higher speeds. Its front-heavy configuration and narrow wheelbase made it prone to tipping over, which became a well-known flaw among drivers. While the car's lightweight design helped with fuel efficiency, it also made it feel flimsy and vulnerable on the road, especially when compared to four-wheeled vehicles. The Bond Bug was powered by a small 700cc engine, producing a modest 29 horsepower. While this might have been sufficient for a lightweight vehicle, it was far from thrilling. The car's top speed was around 76 miles per hour, but reaching that speed was a challenge, and the ride became increasingly unstable at higher velocities. Acceleration was sluggish, and the engine often felt strained when pushed. While it was marketed as a fun, zippy car for young drivers, the actual driving experience left much to be desired. Handling was poor, particularly due to the three-wheel layout, which made the Bug awkward to maneuver in tight spaces. Despite its unique appearance and initial excitement, the Bond Bug struggled to gain widespread popularity. Its high price compared to similarly small cars and its limited practicality meant that it appealed to a niche market. While it was aimed at younger drivers, many found it too expensive for what it offered. Additionally, its reputation for instability and poor handling discouraged potential buyers who might have otherwise been attracted to its quirky design. Sales were disappointing, and production was halted after just 4 years, with fewer than 2,300 units built during its short run. In the years since its production ended, the Bond Bug has gained something of a cult following among enthusiasts of oddball cars. Its unique design and rarity have made it a collector's item, and it is often celebrated as a symbol of the experimental and daring automotive designs of the early 1970s. However, its practical shortcomings, instability, cramped interior, and weak performance remain clear. The Bond Bug may have been one of the most distinctive cars of its time, but it was far from a success in the market. Today, it serves as a reminder of the fine line between innovation and impracticality in automotive design. The Studebaker Lark, produced from 1959 to 1966, was intended to be the company's answer to the growing demand for compact cars in the American market. Facing stiff competition from imports and domestic rivals like Ford and Chevrolet, Studebaker saw the Lark as a last-ditch effort to stay relevant. Despite some initial success, the Lark was ultimately unable to save the company, as it struggled with its uninspiring design, weak performance, and diminishing brand reputation. Introduced at a time when the American public was becoming more conscious of fuel efficiency and compact vehicles, the Lark was a departure from the larger, gas-guzzling cars typically associated with the post-war era. Studebaker had been struggling financially, and the Lark represented a bold gamble to recapture market share by offering a smaller, more affordable car that could appeal to families and young buyers alike. The company quickly retooled existing models to create the Lark, hoping to cut development costs and get the car to market as quickly as possible. Stylistically, the Lark wasn't as bold or innovative as many of its contemporaries. Its design was conservative, with a boxy shape and restrained lines that didn't stand out in an increasingly competitive market. While other manufacturers were pushing the envelope with sleek, futuristic designs, the Lark felt somewhat dated even when it first appeared. It lacked the flair and excitement that many buyers were looking for in the early 1960s, and it quickly became overshadowed by more stylish models from Ford and Chevrolet. The interior of the Lark was similarly underwhelming. Studebaker, in an effort to keep costs low, opted for cheaper materials that resulted in a somewhat Spartan cabin. While it was functional and offered decent passenger space for a compact car, it lacked the refinement and comfort that buyers were beginning to expect, even in smaller vehicles. The cheap materials used throughout the interior didn't help the Lark's reputation, and over time, many owners complained about the car's build quality and durability. Under the hood, the Lark wasn't much of a performer. Early models came with a range of engines, from a modest inline-six to a small V8, but even the more powerful variants felt sluggish compared to competitors. The Lark's small size made it relatively light, but the engines offered little in the way of acceleration or driving excitement. While it was marketed as an economical choice, its performance didn't do much to inspire confidence among drivers, especially when compared to the more robust offerings from Ford and Chevrolet, such as the Falcon or Corvair. Despite these shortcomings, the Studebaker Lark did enjoy a brief period of success, especially in its early years. The car's smaller size and competitive pricing appealed to a growing segment of buyers looking for affordable transportation. In 1959, the first year of production, the Lark helped boost Studebaker's sales significantly, temporarily lifting the company's fortunes. However, this success was short-lived. As the competition ramped up and Studebaker failed to innovate or improve the car, sales began to decline rapidly. Part of the Lark's downfall was due to the overall financial instability of Studebaker as a company. Even as it introduced the Lark, Studebaker was struggling with high production costs, outdated facilities, and a shrinking dealer network. The company was unable to invest in the kind of research and development needed to keep the Lark competitive with the rapidly evolving automotive landscape of the 1960s. As a result, while Ford, Chevrolet, and even import brands like Volkswagen continued to refine their compact car offerings, the Lark remained largely stagnant. By the mid-1960s, it was clear that Studebaker's days were numbered. Despite attempts to modernize the Lark, including offering new engine options and updating the styling slightly, it was too little, too late. The Lark's aging platform and continued reliance on cost-cutting measures only further eroded its appeal. By 1966, Studebaker was forced to shut down its production lines, bringing an end to both the Lark and the company's long history of car manufacturing. In retrospect, the Studebaker Lark is often remembered as a valiant but ultimately unsuccessful effort to keep a struggling company afloat. While it briefly helped stabilize Studebaker's finances, it was never able to compete on equal footing with the more powerful, stylish, and refined compact cars from Ford and Chevrolet. The Lark's lackluster design, weak performance, and cheap construction meant that it never became the game-changer Studebaker had hoped it would be. The Gauguin Dart, produced between 1959 and 1961, was an Australian-made microcar that aimed to bring a sense of sporty fun to the burgeoning small car market. It was based on the German Gauguin, but adapted for a unique Australian audience, with a fiberglass body and an open-top roadster design. While its sporty aesthetic initially drew attention, the Dart ultimately failed to deliver on both performance and practicality, leading it to become more of a quirky collector's item than a mainstream success. The Dart was visually distinctive, with a sleek, aerodynamic shape that gave the impression of speed and excitement. Its lightweight fiberglass body was a key feature, allowing the car to be produced inexpensively while maintaining its unique look. At first glance, the Dart appeared like a small, sporty roadster, almost as if it were a shrunken-down version of a European sports car. Its low-slung profile and curvy lines gave it a modern appearance for its time, and the lack of doors only added to its quirky charm. However, looks were where most of the Gauguin Dart's appeal ended. Underneath the fiberglass shell, the Dart was powered by a diminutive two-cylinder, two-stroke engine, available in either 300cc or 400cc variants. Even for a microcar, these engines were underpowered, producing a meager 15 to 20 horsepower. As a result, the Dart's performance was underwhelming at best. It struggled to reach speeds above 60 miles per hour, and its acceleration was slow, making it a poor performer even on city streets. On highways, the Dart felt completely out of its depth, with its tiny engine straining to keep up with the flow of traffic. Handling was another area where the Gauguin Dart fell short. Its small size and lightweight made it nimble at low speeds, but as the car approached its top speed, it became increasingly unstable. The lack of mass and the rudimentary suspension system meant that the Dart was prone to bouncing and swaying on uneven roads. This made the car difficult to control at higher speeds, particularly on Australia's rougher rural roads. The Dart's light construction also meant that it offered little in the way of crash protection, and without doors or a roof, passengers were left completely exposed to the elements. The Dart's open-top design, while fun and eye-catching, presented significant practical issues. With no doors and no real weather protection, the Dart was essentially a fair-weather vehicle. Rain, wind, or cold made driving it a highly uncomfortable experience, and even light drizzle would leave the driver and passengers soaked. While this open-air roadster setup might have appealed to some enthusiasts looking for a fun weekend car, it severely limited the Dart's appeal as a practical daily driver. Even in sunny climates, the car's lack of creature comforts meant that it was far from an ideal choice for regular transportation. Interior space was also extremely limited. The Gauguin Dart was a two-seater, and while it offered just enough room for a driver and a passenger, it lacked any meaningful storage space. The bare-bones dashboard and seating made it clear that comfort was not a priority. This Spartan approach might have been acceptable in a high-performance sports car, but in a vehicle that struggled to reach 60 miles per hour, it only added to the sense that the Dart was more of a toy than a real car. Despite its numerous shortcomings, the Gauguin Dart did develop a small following, particularly among those who appreciated its unique design and novelty value. The Dart's quirky appearance and rarity have since made it something of a cult classic among microcar enthusiasts. Today, surviving examples are sought after by collectors who are drawn to the car's oddball status and its role in Australia's automotive history. In hindsight, the Gauguin Dart stands as a fascinating example of mid-20th century automotive experimentation. It was a car that attempted to blend the fun, open-air experience of a roadster with the practicality and affordability of a microcar. Unfortunately, it failed to live up to its sporty appearance, offering little in terms of performance, safety, or everyday usability. While it was certainly unique, the Dart's impracticality and poor handling relegated it to a footnote in automotive history, remembered more for its eccentric design than for any real success on the road. The Hillman Minx, produced from 1947 to 1967, served as a quintessential British family car during its long run. Designed to provide affordable transportation, the Minx went through several generations, adapting to changing automotive trends. Yet it consistently maintained a reputation for being slow, bland, and uninspiring. Although it catered to a market segment that prioritized cost over performance, the Minx's overall lack of character and excitement left much to be desired. From its inception, the Hillman Minx was characterized by its conservative design. With each new iteration, the styling remained largely utilitarian, reflecting the practical approach of the manufacturer. While other car manufacturers began to experiment with more modern and eye-catching aesthetics, the Minx's boxy shape and understated appearance did little to excite potential buyers. It was a car designed to blend into the background rather than stand out, appealing primarily to those who needed a basic vehicle for everyday use. Under the hood, the Minx was equipped with modest engine options that emphasized economy over power. The inline-4 engines typically produced around 1.2 to 1.5 liters of displacement, delivering a lackluster performance that was sufficient for city driving but struggled on the open road. Acceleration was slow, and the car's top speed was limited, making it far from thrilling to drive. In an era when competitors were introducing more powerful and efficient engines, the Minx's performance paled in comparison, contributing to its image as a boring choice for motorists. The driving experience in the Hillman Minx was marked by its poor handling characteristics. The car was heavy and lacked the agility that many drivers sought. Its suspension system, designed for comfort rather than sportiness, provided a cushioned ride but left much to be desired in terms of responsiveness. As a result, maneuvering through winding roads or navigating city traffic could feel cumbersome, leading to a driving experience that was more about getting from point A to point B than enjoying the journey. Inside, the Hillman Minx reflected its low-cost orientation. The cabin was basic, with minimal frills or luxury features. While it offered enough space for a small family, the interior was devoid of any excitement, with simple materials and a functional design that prioritized practicality over comfort. Buyers could expect a utilitarian atmosphere, with a focus on seating capacity and cargo space, rather than high-end finishes or modern conveniences. The lack of attention to detail made the Minx feel like a car built to meet a price point rather than one designed with the driver's enjoyment in mind. Despite its shortcomings, the Hillman Minx found a loyal customer base among those who sought affordable transportation. It became a popular choice for families, particularly during the post-war era when many people were looking for budget-friendly options. The car's affordability, combined with its reliability, made it a practical choice for those needing basic transportation for everyday tasks. Throughout its production run, the Hillman Minx underwent several updates and facelifts, but it never truly transformed into a standout vehicle. As the automotive industry evolved and consumer preferences shifted towards more stylish and performance-oriented vehicles, the Minx struggled to keep pace. It was overshadowed by competitors that offered more dynamic driving experiences and modern designs, ultimately leading to a decline in popularity as the 1960s progressed. The Hillman Minx's production ended in 1967, marking the conclusion of a long chapter in British automotive history. While it may not be remembered fondly as a pioneering or revolutionary vehicle, the Minx played a significant role in providing affordable transportation for many families during a time of economic change. Today, it stands as a nostalgic reminder of a simpler era in the automotive world, one where practicality and affordability reign supreme over performance and flair. The Minx's legacy lies in its ability to serve as a functional, if uninspiring, option for those in need of reliable transportation, embodying the ethos of post-war motoring in Britain. The Simca 1000, produced from 1961 to 1978, occupies a unique place in automotive history, representing a blend of affordability, practicality, and design choices that reflected its era. Launched by the French manufacturer Simca, the 1000 was targeted primarily at budget-conscious consumers seeking a compact vehicle that could navigate the increasingly crowded streets of post-war Europe. Despite its ambition in the context of its development, the car was often perceived as outdated and uninspired, raising questions about its legacy and impact on the automotive market. When the Simca 1000 made its debut, it presented a rather conventional design that relied heavily on simplicity rather than flair. Its boxy shape and straightforward lines signaled a departure from the more curvaceous designs that were beginning to gain popularity among its contemporaries. While this lack of flamboyance might have contributed to its lackluster initial reception, it did offer practicality that appealed to many drivers. The compact dimensions of the 1000 made it easy to maneuver in urban environments, and the straightforward design allowed for easier repairs and maintenance, a significant consideration for many owners. One of the defining characteristics of the Simca 1000 was its rear engine layout, a feature that was relatively uncommon among compact cars of the time. This design choice was intended to maximize interior space, allowing for a roomy cabin despite the car's small footprint. However, it also introduced a set of handling challenges that plagued the vehicle throughout its production run. The weight distribution of a rear-mounted engine often resulted in unpredictable handling dynamics, particularly in sharp turns or during high-speed maneuvers. This characteristic earned the car a reputation for being somewhat tricky to drive, which deterred some potential buyers who prioritized performance and handling over practicality. Under the hood, the Simca 1000 was equipped with a modest four-cylinder engine with a displacement of 944 cubic centimeters. Generating around 43 horsepower, the engine provided just enough power for city driving and light highway use. While this performance was adequate for its intended market, it fell short when compared to competitors that offered more spirited driving experiences. Many owners reported that the car felt sluggish during acceleration and struggled to maintain speed on inclines. This perception of underperformance further contributed to the vehicle's reputation as a dull option in a market increasingly defined by competition and innovation. Reliability issues were another significant aspect of the Simca 1000's legacy. While the vehicle was celebrated for its affordability and ease of maintenance, it also became notorious for its mechanical shortcomings. Owners frequently encountered problems ranging from electrical failures to engine issues, leading to a perception that the car was not built to last. This reputation for unreliability created a divide between those who appreciated the Simca 1000 for its low cost and those who were disappointed by the frequent repairs it required. Many of these vehicles became known for their ability to remain on the road despite their challenges, thanks largely to the dedication of their owners, who often took on the task of keeping their cars running well into the later years of their production. In a competitive landscape filled with stylish and technologically advanced vehicles, the Simca 1000 often found itself overshadowed by rivals like the Renault 8 and Fiat 850. These competitors not only offered more appealing designs, but also better performance and handling characteristics. As a result, the Simca 1000 was frequently viewed as a secondary option, appealing mainly to those who prioritize cost over style or performance. Despite this, the car did carve out a niche among consumers looking for an economical vehicle. Its simplicity and low running costs made it particularly attractive to families and young drivers, contributing to its popularity in certain market segments. Throughout its production, the Simca 1000 underwent several updates and facelifts aimed at keeping the model relevant in an ever-evolving automotive landscape. These updates included improvements to interior comfort and safety features, as well as modest power enhancements. However, the core design and engine layout remained largely unchanged, reflecting the challenges the manufacturer faced in adapting to changing consumer preferences and technological advancements. Despite its shortcomings, the Simca 1000 holds a place of nostalgia for many automotive enthusiasts and collectors. Its status as an emblem of the 1960s and 1970s compact car boom in Europe highlights the significance of affordable transportation in a rapidly changing world. As urbanization increased and the demand for smaller cars grew, the Simca 1000 represented a critical response to those societal shifts. The Wartburg 311, produced in East Germany from 1956 to 1965, is a notable example of the challenges faced by Eastern European automotive manufacturers during the Cold War. This vehicle was intended as a budget-friendly solution for a population constrained by economic limitations and material shortages. While the Wartburg 311 fulfilled its role as a practical vehicle for many, its performance, design, and overall reputation left much to be desired, making it a symbol of the struggles that Eastern Bloc manufacturers faced in competing in the global automotive market. Upon its introduction, the Wartburg 311 featured a boxy and utilitarian design that reflected the era's aesthetic preferences. Its straightforward lines and simplistic appearance made it seem outdated even at launch. The design prioritized functionality over flair, lacking the modern styling and appeal that were becoming increasingly important to consumers in both Eastern and Western markets. The car was available as a two-door sedan, a three-door station wagon, and a two-door convertible. But regardless of the body style, the Wartburg 311 maintained a practical and unremarkable presence on the road. One of the most significant drawbacks of the Wartburg 311 was its two-stroke engine, a configuration that produced only 50 horsepower from a displacement of 992 cubic centimeters. While the engine allowed for easy maintenance, it contributed to the car's lackluster performance. With sluggish acceleration and limited power, the Wartburg 311 struggled to keep pace with the demands of modern driving, especially during highway merges or on hilly terrain. Drivers often expressed frustration at the car's sluggishness, which was exacerbated by the distinctive two-stroke noise that many found harsh and unappealing. The Wartburg 311's reputation for reliability was somewhat overshadowed by its mechanical simplicity, while the straightforward design allowed for relatively easy repairs and maintenance. The car was also plagued by significant issues. One of the most pressing problems was its susceptibility to rust, which affected many vehicles of the time. The thinner metal used in the car's construction made it particularly vulnerable to corrosion, especially in the harsh East German winters where road salt was prevalent. Many owners faced the daunting challenge of repairing rusted body panels, which not only impacted aesthetics but also posed risks to structural integrity. Despite its numerous shortcomings, the Wartburg 311 managed to find its place within the East German automotive landscape. It served as a practical solution for those in need of affordable transportation, particularly families and individuals who could not afford more expensive options. Its simplicity and low price point made it accessible to a broad segment of the population, contributing to its popularity in certain market segments. The Wartburg 311 held cultural significance as a product of the Eastern Bloc, symbolizing the aspirations of East Germany to produce its own automobiles independent of Western influence. However, it also highlighted the limitations of competing in a market increasingly dominated by more advanced and appealing vehicles from the West. The car's existence served as a reminder of the broader economic struggles faced by Eastern European countries, where technological advancements were often hindered by limited resources and outdated manufacturing practices. Although the Wartburg 311 was not the most desirable choice for car buyers, it played a role in the narrative of automotive development in the Eastern Bloc. It represented a practical, albeit flawed, vehicle that reflected the realities of life in East Germany. The car continued to evolve over its production run, with various updates aimed at improving comfort and addressing reliability issues. Yet the core design and engine layout remained largely unchanged. The Wartburg 311's production came to an end in 1965 when it was replaced by the Wartburg 353, which sought to address many of its predecessor's shortcomings. The new model introduced improvements in power, performance, and styling, marking a shift towards a more competitive offering in the automotive market. Nevertheless, the Wartburg 311 remains an important part of automotive history, embodying the complexities of automotive development in the Eastern Bloc. In conclusion, the Wartburg 311 stands as a testament to the challenges faced by Eastern European manufacturers during the Cold War. While it served a critical function in providing affordable transportation, its limitations in performance, design, and reliability ultimately defined its legacy. The Wartburg 311 evokes nostalgia for those who experienced it and serves as a reminder of how the automotive industry has evolved in response to consumer needs and market dynamics over the decades. Its story reflects a unique chapter in automotive history, marked by both aspiration and struggle. The Volkswagen 1500 Type 3, produced from 1961 to 1973, was introduced as a more sophisticated alternative to the iconic Beetle. While the Type 3 was meant to expand Volkswagen's lineup and appeal to a broader audience, it struggled to carve out its own identity in a competitive market. Despite its affordability, the VW 1500 Type 3 faced many of the same flaws that had plagued its more famous predecessor, including sluggish performance, limited cargo space, and an awkward design that did not resonate with consumers in the same way as the Beetle. When the Type 3 was launched, it was intended to capture the essence of the Beetle while offering a more modern and refined driving experience. However, the design of the Type 3 was somewhat boxy and conservative compared to the curvier silhouette of the Beetle. Its angular lines and straightforward styling failed to capture the imagination of potential buyers, making it less visually appealing than many of its contemporaries. This lack of charisma was a significant factor in its inability to compete effectively in the burgeoning compact car market, where consumers were increasingly drawn to vehicles that offered both style and performance. Under the hood, the VW 1500 Type 3 was powered by a four-cylinder, air-cooled engine that produced around 50 horsepower. While this power plant was adequate for the car's intended purpose, it resulted in a driving experience that many found lacking in excitement. Acceleration was notably sluggish, and the car struggled to gain speed, particularly when loaded with passengers or cargo. This performance issue was compounded by the fact that, despite being marketed as a more refined vehicle, the Type 3 retained some of the driving dynamics of the Beetle, which were often characterized as less than sporty. One of the more significant drawbacks of the Type 3 was its limited cargo space, which was particularly disappointing, given that it was intended as a family car. The rear engine layout, while allowing for a spacious front trunk, did not provide enough room for luggage or other gear. This limitation made it less practical for families who required a vehicle that could accommodate their needs for storage and passenger comfort. Competing models from other manufacturers often offered more versatility and cargo capacity, further undermining the Type 3's appeal. While the Type 3 was undeniably affordable, its charm and character were often overshadowed by the Beetle's legendary status. The Beetle had become an automotive icon, loved for its unique design, spirited performance, and playful persona. In contrast, the Type 3 lacked the same level of emotional connection with consumers. Its straightforward functionality was not enough to compensate for its shortcomings in performance and design, leaving it to be viewed as a less desirable alternative to the more beloved Beetle. Despite its flaws, the VW 1500 Type 3 did find a niche market and was appreciated by some consumers who valued its practicality and low operating costs. It was often marketed as a family car, and its compact dimensions made it relatively easy to maneuver in urban environments. However, the car's inability to compete with the charm of the Beetle and the allure of rival models from other manufacturers limited its success in the market. The production of the VW 1500 Type 3 ended in 1973, but its legacy endures as a reminder of Volkswagen's efforts to diversify its lineup in the 1960s. The Type 3 served as a stepping stone for future Volkswagen models that would ultimately learn from its shortcomings and evolve to meet the changing preferences of consumers. In retrospect, the Volkswagen 1500 Type 3 represents an interesting chapter in automotive history, illustrating the challenges of innovation within a well-established brand. While it was meant to be a sophisticated alternative to the Beetle, the Type 3 struggled to find its footing and ultimately fell short of the expectations set by its predecessor. Its slow performance, limited cargo space, and awkward design prevented it from becoming the success that Volkswagen had hoped for. Nonetheless, it remains an important part of the brand's legacy, serving as a testament to the complexities of navigating the automotive market during a transformative period in history. The AMC Marlin, produced from 1965 to 1967, was an ambitious attempt by American Motors Corporation, AMC, to carve out a niche in the competitive muscle car market. Marketed as a sporty fastback, the Marlin aimed to attract a younger audience looking for style, performance, and flair. However, despite its aspirations, the Marlin ultimately fell short of expectations, struggling with sluggish performance, uninspired handling, and design flaws that left it feeling more like a traditional sedan than a true sports car. When the Marlin was introduced, it was positioned as a stylish and sporty alternative in AMC's lineup, seeking to capitalize on the growing demand for personal coupes. With its elongated fastback design, the Marlin had the potential to stand out on the road. However, its proportions were awkward, and the overall styling did not resonate with the performance-oriented buyers it sought to attract. While it featured some attractive design elements, such as a distinctive rear end and a sweeping roofline, the car's bulk and heavy body undermined the sense of sportiness that was essential for appealing to its target demographic. Under the hood, the AMC Marlin was available with several engine options, ranging from a modest 232 cubic inch six-cylinder to a more powerful 343 cubic inch V8. However, even with the V8, the Marlin's performance was lackluster compared to its muscle car competitors. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car struggled to deliver the excitement and power that young drivers sought during an era defined by the performance and muscle car craze. The handling of the Marlin was similarly uninspiring. Its weight and size contributed to a cumbersome driving experience that did not live up to the sporty image AMC was trying to promote. One of the most significant challenges the Marlin faced was the fierce competition from better-designed muscle cars of the era, such as the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, and Pontiac GTO. These competitors not only offered superior performance, but also captured the imagination of young drivers with their striking designs, powerful engines, and sporty handling characteristics. In contrast, the Marlin's awkward proportions and heavy body made it difficult to compete for attention and market share. The appeal of the more agile and aggressively styled muscle cars left the Marlin struggling to attract a youthful audience. The interior of the AMC Marlin was functional, but did not offer the level of sportiness or luxury that many buyers expected from a personal coupe. While it provided adequate seating and amenities for passengers, the overall design lacked the flair and excitement that characterized other vehicles in the muscle car segment. The dashboard and instrumentation were straightforward, but felt dated compared to the modern designs found in competing models, further diminishing the car's appeal. Despite these shortcomings, the AMC Marlin did manage to find a niche market, particularly among consumers seeking an affordable and stylish alternative to the more mainstream offerings. However, its production was short-lived, and it became clear that the Marlin was not resonating with the youth market that AMC had hoped to capture. As the muscle car era progressed, the Marlin quickly became overshadowed by the more popular and better-performing models from other manufacturers. In 1967, AMC discontinued the Marlin after just 3 years of production, recognizing that it could not compete effectively in the increasingly crowded and competitive market. The Marlin's brief existence serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers trying to innovate and adapt to changing consumer preferences during a transformative period in automotive history. In retrospect, the AMC Marlin represents an intriguing yet ultimately flawed attempt to break into the muscle car market. While it had the potential for success with its sporty fastback design, the combination of sluggish performance, uninspired handling, and awkward proportions prevented it from becoming the youthful, energetic vehicle it was intended to be. The Marlin's legacy is one of ambition tempered by reality, highlighting the difficulties faced by automakers striving to capture the hearts of consumers during an era dominated by performance and style. Today, the Marlin is often remembered as a curious footnote in automotive history, illustrating the challenges of carving out a unique identity in a market defined by fierce competition and ever-evolving consumer desires. The standard Vanguard, produced from 1947 to 1963, was a British family car that aimed to provide a practical solution for post-war consumers seeking reliable transportation. Designed and manufactured by the Standard Motor Company, the Vanguard was initially well-received, praised for its solid construction and reliable performance during its early years. However, as the years passed, the vehicle's shortcomings became increasingly apparent, revealing a car that was bulky, slow, and prone to rust. By the 1950s and 1960s, the Vanguard's design had become dated, making it less competitive against the newer, more advanced models entering the market. The standard Vanguard was introduced in a time of recovery following World War II, when the British automotive industry was trying to rebuild itself and meet the rising demand for family vehicles. The Vanguard's early models showcased a classic, somewhat conservative design, characterized by its robust build and traditional styling. At first, its appearance was appreciated for its practicality and no-nonsense approach to family transport. However, as other manufacturers began to innovate and push the boundaries of automotive design, the Vanguard struggled to keep pace. Under the hood, the standard Vanguard was equipped with a 4-cylinder engine that initially produced around 55 horsepower. While this power was adequate for everyday driving, the car's performance was generally considered lackluster. Acceleration was sluggish, and the Vanguard struggled to maintain speed on inclines, leading to a driving experience that felt more laborious than enjoyable. Many owners found the car's performance disappointing, especially as competitors began to offer more powerful and efficient engines that enhanced the overall driving experience. Another significant drawback of the standard Vanguard was its ride quality. The car's suspension system, while sturdy, was not well suited to providing a comfortable ride over rough roads. The Vanguard was often described as having a bumpy and unsettled ride, which detracted from the overall driving experience. This lack of comfort made the vehicle less desirable for families who valued smooth, pleasant journeys, especially during longer trips. As newer models introduced more advanced suspension systems that offered better handling and ride comfort, the Vanguard quickly began to feel outdated. Rust was also a major issue for the standard Vanguard, particularly as it aged. The vehicle's body was prone to corrosion, which significantly affected its longevity and resale value. This susceptibility to rust was compounded by the harsh weather conditions faced by many British drivers, leading to further dissatisfaction among owners. As rust took its toll on the vehicle's body, the Vanguard's once sturdy reputation began to falter, leaving many consumers questioning its reliability over the long term. By the 1950s and 1960s, the automotive landscape had evolved considerably, with consumers increasingly seeking cars that offered modern designs, advanced engineering, and improved performance. The standard Vanguard's dated styling and lack of innovation became glaringly apparent against a backdrop of competition from brands that were actively embracing new technologies and design philosophies. Manufacturers like Ford, Vauxhall, and BMC were rolling out vehicles that boasted more stylish designs and improved performance, making the Vanguard seem increasingly irrelevant. In an effort to remain competitive, the Standard Motor Company introduced updates and variations of the Vanguard throughout its production run. However, these efforts often fell short of addressing the core issues that plagued the vehicle. While the car underwent some design modifications and improvements in its later years, it could not shake off the reputation it had developed for being slow and cumbersome. The standard Vanguard's position in the market continued to weaken as more appealing alternatives became available. Ultimately, the production of the standard Vanguard ceased in 1963, marking the end of an era for this once promising family car. Its legacy is a mixed one. Initially celebrated for its reliability and sturdy construction, it gradually became associated with the challenges of aging and stagnation in a rapidly changing automotive landscape. The Vanguard serves as a reminder of the difficulties faced by manufacturers striving to keep pace with consumer demands and evolving technologies. In retrospect, the standard Vanguard represents a significant chapter in British automotive history. While it was a reliable family car during its early years, its bulky design, poor performance, and susceptibility to rust ultimately diminished its appeal. As newer, more advanced models emerged, the Vanguard faded into the background, leaving behind a legacy that highlights the importance of innovation and adaptability in the automotive industry. The Renault Dauphine, produced from 1956 to 1967, holds a dubious distinction in automotive history, often cited as one of the worst cars of its era. Initially designed as a compact and economical family car, the Dauphine aimed to capture the attention of the post-war market, where affordability and practicality were paramount. However, its design flaws, mechanical issues, and overall performance shortcomings quickly overshadowed its intended appeal, leaving many owners disillusioned and frustrated. At the heart of the Dauphine's problems was its rear-mounted air-cooled engine, which produced only 30 horsepower from a modest 845 cubic centimeter displacement. This configuration was meant to provide better handling and weight distribution, but in reality, it contributed to a number of performance issues. The car was painfully slow, struggling to keep up with even modest traffic, and its acceleration was glacial, making merging onto highways or navigating inclines a daunting task. This lack of power was a significant drawback for many drivers, who often found themselves frustrated by the Dauphine's sluggishness. The Renault Dauphine's handling was another area of concern. While the rear engine layout offered some advantages in terms of stability, it also resulted in a driving experience that could feel unpredictable, particularly in wet or slippery conditions. The car's steering was often criticized for being vague and unresponsive, which further detracted from the overall driving experience. This combination of slow acceleration and poor handling made the Dauphine less appealing, particularly in comparison to rival models that offered a more engaging and dynamic driving experience. Reliability was perhaps the most significant issue that plagued the Renault Dauphine. Many owners reported persistent mechanical problems, with components prone to failure. From electrical issues to transmission troubles, the Dauphine became notorious for its unreliability, often leaving drivers stranded or requiring costly repairs. This reputation for breakdowns contributed to the car's negative perception, making it a challenging choice for families and individuals who relied on their vehicles for daily transportation. As a result, many Dauphine found their way onto the used car market, where they were often purchased by those who could afford little else. Unfortunately, the allure of a low price was frequently overshadowed by the car's poor track record, as buyers soon learned the hard way about the Dauphine's numerous faults. The design of the Renault Dauphine was another aspect that failed to impress. While it had a certain charm with its rounded contours and compact dimensions, the styling quickly became outdated. By the mid-1960s, when more modern and innovative designs were emerging from both French and international manufacturers, the Dauphine appeared increasingly out of touch with consumer expectations. Its uninspired aesthetics, combined with its poor performance, left the car struggling to find a foothold in a rapidly changing automotive landscape. Despite its many flaws, the Renault Dauphine did have a few redeeming qualities. It was relatively economical, making it an attractive option for budget-conscious buyers. Its compact size made it easy to maneuver in urban environments, and its straightforward design allowed for easy maintenance. However, these positive attributes were often overshadowed by the sheer number of problems that owners faced, ultimately leading to widespread dissatisfaction. Production of the Renault Dauphine ended in 1967, with the car being replaced by the more advanced Renault 10. While the Dauphine's legacy is often marred by its numerous shortcomings, it remains a significant part of automotive history, highlighting the challenges faced by manufacturers striving to produce affordable and reliable family vehicles in a competitive market. In conclusion, the Renault Dauphine serves as a cautionary tale of automotive ambition meeting reality. While it was intended to be a practical and economical family car, its slow performance, unreliable mechanical components, and outdated design left it with a reputation that has endured over the decades. The Dauphine is often remembered not for its successes, but for the lessons it teaches about the importance of reliability, performance, and consumer expectations in the automotive industry. Today, it stands as a reminder of an era when manufacturers were still grappling with the complexities of engineering and design, and its place in history is secured as one of the most notorious cars of its time. The NSU Prince, produced from 1957 to 1973, was a small German car that, while affordable and practical for post-war consumers, fell short in many key areas, earning it a reputation as an uninspired and uncomfortable vehicle. Designed and manufactured by NSU, a company more known for its motorcycles than cars, the Prince was intended to be a basic, budget-friendly mode of transportation for families and individuals seeking economical options in a recovering Germany. However, its outdated styling, noisy and underpowered engine, and rough ride made it a car that most buyers only chose when they had few alternatives. At first glance, the NSU Prince had an appearance that seemed stuck in an earlier era. Its boxy, conservative design, with sharp lines and a compact frame, lacked the flair and modernization that many of its contemporaries were beginning to adopt in the late 1950s and 1960s. The Prince's styling was functional but far from attractive, with an uninspired look that failed to capture the imagination of drivers. As the decades passed, the Prince's aesthetics grew even more outdated, especially as sleeker, more aerodynamic designs became the norm across Europe. Under the hood, the Prince was powered by a rear-mounted, air-cooled engine, a design choice that had its roots in NSU's motorcycle heritage. This engine configuration was noisy and delivered minimal power, often leaving drivers frustrated by the car's sluggish performance. With only around 20 to 30 horsepower in the early models, the Prince struggled to accelerate and maintain speed, especially when loaded with passengers. The underpowered engine made it ill-suited for anything beyond city driving, and even in urban environments, its slow pace made it a challenge to keep up with traffic. The rear-mounted engine, while practical in some ways, also contributed to the car's noisy operation. The constant hum and vibration from the engine were ever present in the cabin, making longer journeys uncomfortable and fatiguing for both driver and passengers. Combined with the car's stiff suspension, the NSU Prince had a rough ride, transmitting every bump and imperfection in the road directly to its occupants. This harsh ride quality was another major factor that diminished the appeal of the vehicle, especially at a time when other cars were beginning to offer smoother, more refined driving experiences. In terms of interior comfort, the NSU Prince offered little to brag about. The cabin was small and utilitarian, with basic seating that provided minimal cushioning or support. The dashboard and controls were straightforward, but lacked any sense of modernity or convenience. While the car was affordable, its sparse interior reflected the low-cost nature of the vehicle, making it less attractive to buyers who desired more comfort or sophistication in their cars. Despite its numerous shortcomings, the NSU Prince did serve an important role in post-war Germany, where many people were in desperate need of affordable transportation. The Prince's low price made it accessible to a wide range of consumers, particularly those for whom more expensive cars were out of reach. For some, it was a first step into automobile ownership, offering basic mobility at a time when economic conditions were still challenging for many families. However, the affordability of the NSU Prince came at a cost. While it provided transportation, it offered little else in terms of driving pleasure, comfort, or reliability. Many owners saw it as a car of last resort, something they purchased out of necessity rather than desire. Over time, as other manufacturers introduced more appealing options with better performance, comfort, and style, the Prince was increasingly viewed as an outdated relic, struggling to compete in an evolving market. The NSU Prince did see some evolution over its production run, with later models like the Prince 4 attempting to modernize the car's design and improve performance. However, even these efforts were not enough to fully address the fundamental flaws that had plagued the car from the start. By the early 1970s, it was clear that the Prince was no longer a viable option in the increasingly competitive automotive landscape, and production finally ceased in 1973. Looking back, the NSU Prince is often remembered as a symbol of post-war austerity and practicality, but also as a vehicle that failed to meet the demands of a more discerning market. Its rear-mounted air-cooled engine, while functional, was noisy and underpowered, and its rough ride made it far less enjoyable to drive than many of its competitors. Today, the NSU Prince stands as a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers in the 1950s and 1960s, as they attempted to balance affordability with the growing expectations of consumers for better performance, comfort, and style.